Hello, this is Isa Kyutan of Asian Agribiz. Piggery in India has often been a backyard affair, but as my colleague Zara Imtiaz finds out, this sector is now poised for growth as old eating habits give way to a diverse meat palette in the country. Listen to our discussion with Dr. C P Gopakumar to learn what's in store for pigs in India.
Hi, Dr. Gopakumar. Thank you so much for joining us today in our podcast. Today we're going to discuss the little known facts about the Indian piggery sector. India is not the most well known for this segment, but I think you have a very interesting story for us. So before we start, can you give us a brief description of how you came into this field? Because as far as I know, your entry into piggery in Kerala as you start is kind of linked to the very beginning of commercial piggery in India itself.
True. I think so. Well, just a brief description about myself and how I came into piggery. Well, basically, I was born in a heart of a city called as Cochin, in south of India. A typical cosmos city where you don't have any livestock. So in my childhood, I had no much contact with livestock, maybe a bit of pets, and I wanted always to be a engineer or something related to maths. Unfortunately, my dad wanted me to be a doctor, a human doctor, not a veterinary doctor. And when the schoolings were over and I went through the entrance exam, finally it was like I didn't get both, neither the engineering nor the MBBS, but finally ended up with veterinary. That is how I entered into veterinary and livestock, because in India it is Bachelor of Veterinary and Animal Husbandry. So that was in 1984 that I joined veterinary school, and I did my post-graduation basically in breeding and genetics, because it had a bit of statistics, and I told you I liked a bit of maths. So after that, during the campus interview, I was actually selected for a company called as Kerala Livestock Development Board. It's a government company, basically erstwhile Indo-Swiss project of Kerala, where they were the pioneers for the frozen semen in cattle. First in 1964 it was produced in India. So they were, something first for many things in cattle. And I was also getting trained to take over the cattle breeding. So in short, the first 5 years of my service was mainly into cattle breeding and bull mother farms and training center, of course. So it was in 1995 that the government of Kerala wanted a huge piggery to be taken up by our company, the Kerala Livestock Development Board. And of course, we didn't have any expertise. So finally, government told that, okay, I will give you 100 acres of land, whatever whatever the finances required for the capex, whatever is required. And we thought, okay, we'll find a person who will be the special officer, and it turned out to be me. And then, of course, we required some manpower development, because as you told, the piggery in India is a very primitive subject. So I was selected and sent to a international training center for pig husbandry in Philippines. It was a joint international training center, which is between the Barnwell College in Netherlands and the Agriculture Training Institute in Philippines. So what happened is that, that was where I came to know that, okay, I knew nothing other. What is happening in India is very primitive. It was an exposure to what is happening somewhere internationally, because we had people from China, we had students from Thailand, from Indonesia, from Philippines itself. So that 4 months of hands-on training was a real good exposure, knowing what is modern, what is happening modern, the modern housing systems, the feeding regime, the standard operating procedures, and a commercial farm, how to run a commercial farm. So in 1995, when I was back, I told my government that I don't want the typical piggery what is being done in India. I told I want a different housing, I want a different breed, and I want to run it in a different way. And fortunately, the government was very supportive. So, I started with a driver and 100 acres of barren land. It was a hillock where we developed, we produced a 700, or we made an infrastructure for 700 sow level, because the objective was to produce 10,000 fattening piglets. And that is when I was able to introduce the three-tier system, that is like a nucleus, multiplier, or commercial breeding herd, and a fattening stock in India for the first time in Kerala. Similarly, I also brought in the three-way crosses, the DLY. I mean, previously it was like either using a large weight or landrace or upgrading the local animals. So that was in Kerala that I introduced first time the large white into landrace female lines. And as a terminal sire, excuse me, I brought in the Duroc for the first time in the country, because you know that, okay, internationally Duroc is one of the best sire lines because of its meat quality, its maleness, male characteristics. So this was introduced in 1997. The construction was over, and fortunately I could get the animals from the biggest company, the PIC, Pig Improvement Company. In 1999 it happened. That is how the whole story started, and it caught up. I mean, like, at least in the south, people didn't want anymore the old system, because the animals, the piglets what we were giving is something different, with a leaner meat, with a longer carcass. And so that is how it started in Kerala. And at that time, while 13 years I was running it, I was also sending the pure lines to even in IVRI in Delhi, that is the Indian Veterinary Research Institute, to many state governments. Well, it went on like that till 2007, when the government had some local issues, and then they wanted to convert this pig farm into a cattle farm, and half was given to the border security force for the office. So I had to close down that. That is exactly when this DLG, the present company I'm working in, the promoter, Mr. Sanjit, happened to come from US, and he was planning to do something in livestock, and he too wanted something to do in piggery. So we joined hand, and from there we start. What was left out at KLDB in 2009, we started in DLG. The same system, of course, the same three-way breeding system. Plus, we also went to a next level. Like, okay, we had integration with farmers. We bought back. We had our own brand of meat, and we also were giving special cuts, processed meat, to the level of even ready to cook. So in short, this is a very brief story of how it started. Everything started in Kerala, but now it is happening in Karnataka, because Kerala, now I think this whole South has taken this project of three-way cross. Even the government of India has approved the system of having, for the South at least for the South India, a three-way cross system, what they call it as, with three breeds with a Duroc terminal male. So what I had started in 1999, now it is approved for South India, and it's doing good.
That's true. And Doctor,
that is in short.
Yeah, from what I understand, the stock you brought in at that time has not been replenished since. Am I right?
Yeah, unfortunately, what happened is that in 2001, this happened in 1999, and there was some other import in 2001, but all the imports were happening to certain government farms. And after 2001, the government of India came up with a policy that no more germplasm can be imported, whether it is cattle or pig or anything, from outside. We are supposed to use the indigenous animals. So from 2001 till recent years, the import was banned. So most of the farms, whatever they had, got inbred or got lost. But fortunate enough, for the 26 years I was doing keeping the pure lines in the pure farm. And because mainly we were doing crossbreeding for the commercial breeders, so we could delay the process of inbreeding. So otherwise, yeah, you're right. I mean, it has not happened much. Now the semen has been brought in by one or two people. Some small import has happened in the north. Yeah, in general, you can say that nothing has happened in big way.
True. That comes to my next question, actually, because the in the last few years, the Indian government has refocused its energy in piggery. And we have seen a bit of improvements in new farms coming up and all. But like you
Okay.
said about your commercial experiences, can you tell us the challenges that exist now to large scale pig farming in India?
Yeah, that's a good question. See, I mean, you're right. Like, I mean, it is only recently the government of India is showing some focus. For example, when I started, tell you frankly, maybe almost 1 to 2% of the total budget for livestock was the allotment for piggery. Similarly, when you had around in the higher up office in Delhi, when you have around 1,000 or 200 or 300 officers, one officer was handling piggery. So the importance for piggery is very less. But recently, yeah, the government of India has found it very important subject, because basically, especially for the Northeast, because 70% of the meat is being consumed by Northeast, and their key sector the government has identified is as piggery. So there are some funding coming, there are some programs coming, some small improvements coming, but that doesn't mean that, okay, I mean, it is going to suddenly boost up like what happened in Vietnam. There are a lot of challenges. Let's say one of the basic challenges that lack of knowledge. See, I mean, unfortunately, the veterinary subject or the veterinary college have very less on piggery. So the problem is that the animal husbandry officers or the extension officers who are supposed to give the knowledge or transfer the knowledge to the farmers have very little information about commercial piggery, or their experience is as good as nil. Second challenge is that, I mean, lack of many disease virus vaccines. For example, there are very few vaccines, and that to the classical swine fever vaccine is the only vaccine that is available in India, which is specifically for pigs. The foot and mouth vaccine, you have it, is actually a vaccine that is for cattle, not good for pigs. So similarly, ASF has broken out. There is PRRS in the country. There is PCV, the circovirus in the country. So a lot of vaccinations are not available, which means that the commercial farms are very much exposed to getting disease if they don't have a good biosecurity measure. Another challenge is that the most of the government funding, whether it is for import or for the nucleus herds, it's going for the government farms. And tell you frankly, the government farms are not developed or modern enough to handle a nucleus farm, because basically it's like, I mean, it's veterinary plus animal husbandry. You have officers moving from the the hospitals to the farm, so there is no regularity in the farm management. So all this put together, the money that is being pumped in by the government is not really affecting the commercial, I mean, not really helping out the commercial farms. But maybe things might change. I don't want to really say negative about it. And the next problem, what I've seen, is the breeds again. See, I mean, you asked me earlier, like, have you ever? I mean, every year there is a genetic improvement happening internationally. You might have heard that all the breeding companies, a few breeding companies are doing regular genetic improvement. For example, the animals, the breeds I have a potential to produce around 11.5 to 12 average piglets per farrowing, and with a better management, I'm able to get around 2.2 to 2.3. But now internationally, it is like 15, and the weaned piglets per sow per year internationally is running at 30. So there has been in 20 years, there has been a genetic improvement, unless or until we have more easier way of importing at least semen, so that at least the male side 50% improvement happens. So the challenges are, one is the genetic problem, the genetic upgradation. Second is the knowledge base about commercial farming. Third is the disease. I mean, the biosecurity and the vaccines you have, because India is part of Asia where you have all these diseases as endemic. So these are the big challenges.
True. I think one more challenge would be market, because due to so many social taboos and all, pork is not the most commonly eaten in India.
True,
But
true,
but as
true, true, true.
Yes, but as young
Yeah, because
Indians,
one more thing, I'll just like to add on that. See, I mean, I regularly go for many classes. So one of the main thing I've seen is that I ask them a question like, okay, why don't you eat pork? Because internationally it is 30 plus percentage or 30, it was 36 or 30, 33 now. The share of pig in the pork in the meat market, but in India it is still at around 4%. So I used to ask them what is the problem, and exactly the main reason is, you ask them, they'll say religious. I mean, religious only for Muslims, but for the Hindus, if they can eat meat, they can eat even pork. Then ultimately put a slide of a scavenging pig. See, this is the basic problem. Problem is that many people who have gone outside, they want to have pork, but then nobody want to cook up pork in the house because this sight of scavenging pigs, which is not happening in some states like Kerala and Northeast, where there is no social taboo.
so so in that sense, as young Indians, like, are exposed to Western cultures and things like that,
True,
do you
true.
think more pork is coming into that diet, and how can the local industry leverage this opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, there is for example, I'll tell you in Bangalore, I'm just taking an example, a city, Bangalore. When I started, there were just two shops, one pork, Bangalore ham shop, one pork shop, or one or two shops. But if you now go to Bangalore, in each housing colony area, you can see a pork stall. So the pork stalls have increased. The interest for pork has increased. But the basic problem is that, yeah, I mean, if you look at the quality of the pork, yeah, they're not able to get a even quality. So the main problem for the industry is that, one is that, second is the even now the fresh, what you call fresh in India, is a animal which is cut and hanging in the shop. A chill meat is never accepted by the customers. So the problem is, if you want to have a more better meat, maybe we should have slaughterhouses. But if you run a slaughterhouse, the chill meat requires acceptance, which means that the consumer has to understand what is the benefit of chilling a meat. Or so this sort of a consumer awareness about the meat quality is less. So they want pork, but they're not sure about the quality. I mean, the quality is so variant. Some are small animals, some are bad animals, some are good animals, some are fat animals. So many times the young Indians would like to go to a hotel and have food, and many of the hotels are even now importing pork. For example, if you look at the statistics, the pork import is increasing at a higher percentage than what is happening with the local pork. If the industry somebody has to do a marketing in that way, so that the quality of pork, if you give better quality pork, you get a better price. There is no pricing system where the pricing is related to the quality.
Okay. Finally, what are the lessons we can learn from other larger pork producing nations in Asia like China, Thailand, Vietnam, when you are chalking out the journey of Indian piggery? And what are the pitfalls we can avoid in our own story?
Of course, we have lot to learn. I mean, see, especially I would say Vietnam, because Vietnam had a piggery something similar to India. I mean, their stock, how they have changed from what they were to what they are. Because of course, China was always in piggery from before. So here, see, I mean, what we have to learn from them is that, okay, I mean, we have to see this whole piggery as two sides. Like, I mean, there is a native way of rearing in Northeast, where it is like they prefer to keep it in the backyards, and it's part of their tradition, part of their livelihood. So see, I mean, the government should see two different. Just by that, we won't be able to actually increase the productivity of pigs. So on the other side, there should also be a commercial farms like what is happening in China and Thailand. Maybe not as big as what you see in China, like a 14-storied pig apartment or a 24-storied, but at least 500 sow level, 1,000 sow level. That sort of commercial farms also has to be encouraged. So in those cases, we have a lot of lessons to learn, because I actually have learned all my lessons from the Southeast Asian countries, not from India. So I mean, if the piggery has to improve, we have to do more in the commercial side, at least on the breeding side, so that you have sufficient piglets for the farmers to grow it. Because Again, the farmers of India are basically good at fattening, but very bad at breeding. For example, I've seen that many of these farmers are still using the swill feed for breeding. And what they feel is that if they get a good breed and a good housing, that is fine. But imagine like a Indian is born on the road or a Indian is born in a good family, but they don't grow equally. So just by the breed, it will not work out. So many a times the piglets, even if you give good germplasm, are not having that quality of because of a lack of good feeding system, a good SOP like what we are doing or a few farms like us are doing. So we are trying to learn from the Southeast Asian countries, not from the Europe, because they are more common. I mean, we have more in common from Asia. So things are happening. So we have to learn a lot. There are a lot to learn, and I think government should also see this as a separate subject so that the sufficient piglets are produced. Because now what I see is that it's mainly more oriented towards the backyard system, and backyard system you see only in the Northeast. Second thing, the government is more thinking about a pig like a cattle, and what they are thinking is, okay, we will try to upgrade the local animals. They are bringing in imported semen or imported animals and trying to upgrade the local. There is double negative for that. One is that actually you're downgrading the better animals. Second is that you're losing the local germplasm. So let the local germplasm remain in its pure form in the backyard system and the livelihood systems, and at the same time you have crossbreeding with a better quality to produce the bulk of piglets. And in this, of course, the countries we can look forward at is Philippines, Thailand, China, Vietnam. There's a lot to learn from the Asian countries.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Gopakumar. Insightful analysis of the industry and actually very...
Thank you and welcome. And thank you again for inviting me for this podcast.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you gained some important insights from it. Please subscribe to the Asian Agribiz channel on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information, please visit www.asian-agribiz.com.